this is a dish that is infinitely better than the sum of its parts. Shrimp and grits is a dish that, in my opinion at least, kind of goes off the rails a lot of the time. People get really creative with what all should go into it, and to a degree, I understand that. People want to personalize it. But I think that if you take a step back and ask yourself why the dish works, it is a bit of a study in restraint. And so today, I want to show you the way that I like to make it, the way that I've made it for my family most of my life, and the way that I serve it in my restaurants when I do so. So let's walk through the ingredients that are in front of me here. And well, they are kind of vast because this is a full dish. This is everything. This is not just the garnish to it. This is the entire thing. So from left to right, not in order of importance here, I have Madeira wine, I have milk, I have some water back here, I have grits. In fact, that's what these are too. These are an heirloom variety of grits called Jimmy Red, which makes a really kind of beautiful red-orange cornmeal. I have some bacon, some green onions, a bell pepper or sweet pepper, some celery, some peeled tomatoes, and some herbs. Now, there is one ingredient missing, and that's shrimp. They're, of course, in the fridge for now because we want to make sure those stay ice cold. So, first things first, as all of our recipes, we have to get our mise en place together. So that means some prep work, but before we even cut veg, we need to get our grits on because they're going to take a few minutes to cook. So let me move this out of the way and I'll walk you through setting up for perfect grits. So with all things Southern, it really is a study in technique and getting the best possible ingredients more than it is doing a lot of crazy steps to it. And grits obviously are no exception to that. In fact, my granny would tell you that the only way that she would cook grits is if she was using stone ground heirloom heritage grits like I have right here. They just taste a lot better and they have much better texture. Now, the downside is they take a really long time to prepare. What I mean is not 10 hours, but at least an hour. So we're going to go ahead and get those going while we work on the rest of our prep. Now, the ratio for grits, for stone ground grits at least, is 4 parts liquid to 1 part grits. So I have a half a cup of grits measured out in front of me right here. I have 1 cup of water, and I'm going to add to that 1 cup of milk. So for me, I like a ratio of half water, half milk. I find that if you go too heavy in the milk department, they actually get too rich. And if you don't use any of it at all, they seem to lack a little bit of that kind of creaminess that you would anticipate. So I'm pouring that in my saucepan. By the way, this is just a 2-quart saucepan. I'm going to bring this to a scald. I was about to say boil, but that's not really what I'm doing. I'm bringing this up just until the bubbles start to build around the outside of it. Then I'm going to whisk my grits in. And I'm going to whisk them in a smooth stream to make sure that I don't get any lumps. And I'm going to keep stirring them until the mixture begins to set and get just the tiniest little bit thick. Once that happens, I'm going to turn it all the way down to as low as the burner will go. And I'm going to ditch the whisk in favor of a rubber spatula. That way I can keep stirring it. And I'll cook this lid on and off for about an hour as I cut up all of my vegetables. So, next step, adding in the grits. So now that I have all of my mise en place, for the most part, ready, the first thing that I want to do, aside from the grits, which are already cooking, is I want to make a very easy shrimp broth or stock. So I have all the shells from my shrimp that I peeled, and I'm just going to add them to, frankly, the smallest saucepan I can get them to fit into, because I don't want a ton of liquid here. I'm just going to fill this up with enough liquid that it covers the shells bring it up to a boil, turn it down, and let it kind of sit for about 15 minutes. It's not a really long process. This is just in lieu of using pure water for making the sauce, it adds a little bit more of that shrimp flavor. So the first thing that we're going to do is take our chopped bacon that we have right here, nice pieces. We're going to throw it in our pan. Give that a stir. And then allow the bacon to cook in the pan until it's nicely rendered and golden brown. Once our bacon has reached a nice deep brown color, we can start adding our other ingredients to it. So our next addition is going to be our vegetables here. So we have green onions, we have celery, and we have our red peppers into our pan. We can also add our herbs, so that's our bay leaf and our thyme. Our next ingredient is totally optional. This is Korean red chili powder. I use it in place of cayenne pepper because I like mine to have a little bit of a spicy kick. So I'm going to add a shake of that. If you don't like spicy, just leave it out entirely. Once we get a really good color in here and the vegetables start to soften up, now's a good time to add our tomatoes. So these are our chopped tomatoes, just broken into smaller pieces. We can use our spatula to break up the bigger pieces and mix them all through. Let's let this cook until some of the liquid evaporates, so about 2 minutes before we add our stock. Our final ingredient before putting a lid on this and allowing it to simmer is going to be our shrimp stock. The easiest thing to do is just to use our lid as a strainer and pour in our broth. We'll bring this to a boil and we'll allow this to simmer for about 5 minutes. So guys, we have our sauce base made and it can just sit aside for as long as you want to. Our grits are pretty much done now. We do need to finish them with a little bit of butter and salt, but those two steps can and should be done well in advance of actually finishing shrimp and grits. You could make this in the morning, for example, and let it sit on the back of the stove top and just kind of infuse its flavors. You don't want to cook the shrimp until you're actually ready to serve the dish though. So without further ado, let's throw a few of them in the pan and plate this thing. I should have mentioned, when I said we have to add butter to our grits, what I meant was like a lot of butter, like this much butter, which is probably most of a stick of butter to our half a cup of dried grits. So it's a lot of butter, but that's what makes it delicious. We also need to add some salt, by the way, because I haven't seasoned this at all yet. So a very large pinch of salt. Haggis apparently agrees. So this is when the dish comes together really, really quickly. I have my saute pan over here on high heat, getting really, really hot. Behind my saute pan, it's a little bit hard for you guys to see, but right behind it, I have my tomato sauce, or my base sauce. So that's the one with all of my veggies, my shrimp stock, stuff like that. It's just kind of chilling on the back because I'm going to use it in a moment. I have some shrimp. I have 6 of them, as a matter of fact, and I'll go ahead and give them a sprinkle of salt and a little bit of black pepper on them as well. And then I have my Madeira, and this is going to be for deglazing our pan. The idea here is that we're going to add our shrimp with a little bit of oil. By the way, my oil choice for this is going to be grapeseed oil because it has a super high smoke point. We're going to add these shrimp over ridiculously high heat, and they're probably going to ignite, and we want that. That's the flavor profile that we want, but we have to move very, very quickly when we do that. So the shrimp go in, we give them a toss, we flip them over, we immediately add in our sauce, we kill our heat, and we stir everything together. So, no stopping, and I prefer to do this one at a time, honestly. So, I mean, if I was going to make dinner for my wife and I could do 2 portions at once, but I wouldn't do 10 because I really want to create that super high heat environment. So, let's see what happens. glaze. Kill our heat. And add our tomato sauce base. Now the residual heat in this pan, which obviously is still very hot, is going to reduce our sauce to give us a nice consistency. It's also going to finish our shrimp. And the volume of salt and pepper that we put on the shrimp traditionally is enough to season it. But it's always best to grab a spoon and give it a taste. I think that's perfect. That's really, really good to go. So let's plate it up. I'll grab a bowl and some grits. We'll put this together and we'll throw some final thoughts together as well. Okay, so let's plate this up. We have our grits, which you can see are super, super creamy. And that's not because we loaded them with heavy cream. It's because we allowed them a slow cook, which extracts all of the natural creaminess that's present in the corn itself. Plus, we added a lot of butter. That doesn't hurt. So I'm going to add a nice big spoonful of that in the bottom of this. And just, it'll kind of self-level. As long as it's kept to the right consistency, the grits will sort of smooth themselves out. Then I'm going to grab my shrimp and just kind of spoon those right on top of this. And then obviously a nice big spoonful of our sauce right over the top. And it can kind of fall off wherever it lands, because that's the key with shrimp and grits, is that it's really about all of these elements together. It's not about a super heavy sauce that covers up the flavor of the shrimp. It's the other way around. It's a sauce that complements the natural flavor of the shrimp. And then obviously we want to use up the green part of the green onion, and a lot of it. To me, that's another one of the quintessential flavors of this, is loads and loads and loads of green onions right over the top. So that's it, guys. That's our classic shrimp and grits. It does take a few kind of minutes to put all the pieces together, but I promise you that if you take that time to peel your own shrimp, make your stock, make all of your sauce components, this is a dish that is infinitely better than the sum of its parts. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Come back, see me again sometime. We'll make something else.